Hello.
Hey.
Hello.
Hi.
And look at what we're... There it is.
I'm sorry.
11. Hi, Kylo.
And then Mary Kay Ricky right over there. I can't find her.
November. She spent her birthday smiling. Not just a forced smile, the kind you wear to keep people from asking questions. No, this was real, warm, radiant. The kind of smile that said, I made it. I survived another year. Stephanie Brinson, known to those who loved her as Stevie, had just turned 62. She laughed on camera, thanked everyone for their wishes, called the year her best in over a decade. She had grandkids she adored, a little hair salon that felt like home, and a heart that, even after decades of pain, betrayal, and loss, still refused to harden, still wanted to love. But 4 weeks later she was dead, strangled alone. Her body lay cold on a prison bed, her neck bruised by the hands of the man she had called her husband. His name was David Brinson, a man sentenced to 4 life terms without the possibility of parole for executing 4 people in 1994. No chance of freedom, no hint of remorse. A killer, plain and simple, and yet Stephanie married him. She told her family God had softened her heart. She believed in redemption. She said she saw the good in him. Really saw it, that even monsters deserved one person. To believe they could be more. What she didn't know was that while she was trying to heal him, he was studying her, that every I love you from his lips was a setup, that every Bible verse they shared was rehearsed, because David Brinson didn't need saving, he needed silence. And on a cold November night, he wrapped his hands around the only person who ever believed in him, and squeezed until there was nothing left to believe in. This is the story of how love, blind, holy, and sincere, walked willingly into the arms of evil, and never walked back out. She had faith bigger than fear, a heart softer than most, and a belief that even the darkest soul could be redeemed. But what happens when that belief leads you straight into the arms of a killer? Let's go deeper into the story of Stephanie Brinson, the woman who tried to save a murderer and lost her life in the process.
Hello.
Hey.
Hello.
Hi.
And look at what we're... There it is.
I'm sorry.
11. Hi, Kylo.
And then Mary Kay Ricky right over there. I can't find her.
November. Her name was Stephanie Brinson, but everyone who loved her called her Stevie. She was the kind of woman who made you feel better just by being in the room. Always smiling, always giving, always talking about God and how important it was to love people, even the ones who were hard to love. Stevie was 62 years old. She was a mother, a grandmother, and a hairstylist. She didn't just fix hair, she listened to people. She cared about their stories. She gave them hope when they felt broken, and she never turned anyone away. She had 6 grandkids she loved. More than anything, she took them on trips. She played with them like she was their age. She laughed the loudest. She hugged the tightest. And when her heart hurt, she still smiled anyway. She made videos on Facebook, simple ones, just her saying thank you or showing off a little gift she got. On her last birthday, she recorded a video and said, "This year has been the best I've had in over a decade." And she meant it. Life had finally started to feel good again. After years of being hurt, lied to, and left behind, she finally felt seen. She believed God was giving her a fresh start, a new beginning. She had no idea that same happiness she felt on her birthday was her last. Stevie had a big heart, but sometimes it was too big. She once said, "I've lost thousands of dollars just because I couldn't say no. My heart is too soft, and God still tells me it needs to be even softer." She would help people even when they didn't deserve it. She forgave the ones who hurt her. She gave second, third, and fourth chances, even when it broke her. Most people would walk away from pain, but Stevie walked toward it, hoping she could fix it. She believed that if she just loved enough, gave enough, prayed enough, things would change. People would change, even the ones who had done terrible things. But what no one saw, not really, was that deep down, Stevie was tired. She smiled through it, but her heart was heavy. She had been through so much pain, and all she wanted was peace. She wanted to believe that love could fix the broken, that kindness could reach the unreachable, that even the coldest hearts could become warm. But sometimes the people we try hardest to save are the ones already waiting to destroy us. His name was David Brinson. Before anyone knew him as Stephanie's husband, the world already knew him as a killer. It was back in 1994. 4 men, all shot in the head, execution style, no warning, no chance to run, no mercy. He didn't cry in court, he didn't apologize, he didn't even pretend to be sorry. He planned it, every detail. And when it was over, he acted like it was just another day. He was sentenced to life in prison, 4 times over. No chance of parole, no hope of freedom, ever. And that's where most people thought the story ended, locked behind cold steel bars deep inside cell B12 at Mule Creek State Prison. But monsters don't just disappear when you lock them away. Sometimes they wait, they study, they pretend, and when the world forgets what they really are, they smile. David Brinson wasn't just a prisoner. He was a danger wrapped in silence. And somehow, Stephanie found him. Or maybe he found her. No one knows the exact moment it began. Maybe it was a letter, maybe it was a message sent through a prison ministry, or maybe she just came across his name while doing what she always did, looking for someone to help. However it started, the truth is simple. A woman full of faith came face to face with a man who had none, and somehow, instead of turning away, she reached out her hand. Stephanie believed in God more than anything. She believed in forgiveness, in second chances, and in the idea that no one was too far gone to be saved. That included David Brinson. To most people, he was a murderer, a monster, someone to fear and forget. But to Stephanie, he was a broken man behind bars who, like everyone else, was still a child of God. When she read about his crimes, 4 men shot in cold blood, she didn't feel disgust. She felt pity, compassion, sadness. Where others saw evil, she told herself, maybe he just never had love. Maybe he never had someone who truly cared about his soul. And so she started writing, and he wrote back. At first, the messages were simple. Talk of faith, Bible verses, shared prayers. She said she could feel his heart softening. She believed her words were helping him, that she was reaching a place in him that no one else had ever reached, that God had placed her in his life for a reason. But her family didn't see it that way. They were scared, confused, angry. Her sons asked her why she was giving time, energy, and love to someone who had taken so much from the world. They begged her to stop, to remember who he really was. They reminded her that David Brinson had killed 4 people, and he didn't do it out of fear or by accident. He planned it. He pulled the trigger. He ended lives. What made her think she would be safe? But Stephanie answered the same way every time. God doesn't turn away the lost sheep, and neither will I. In her eyes, everyone deserved grace, even the ones who had destroyed everything. And if no one else was going to pray for him, she would. If no one else was going to love him, she would, because that was her heart. That was who she had always been, and little by little, what started as letters turned into something else, something deeper, something that felt like love, or at least she thought it was. But what Stephanie didn't realize, what she couldn't have known, was that while she was trying to save a soul, the soul she was touching wasn't real. David wasn't healing, he was performing. He knew what to say. He knew how to sound like a changed man. He told her everything she wanted to hear, that he was reading his Bible every day, that he was sorry for what he had done. that her love was helping him become someone better, and she believed him. Why wouldn't she? She had given her whole life to helping people grow. She had seen others change. She had helped women leave abuse, helped kids find direction, helped strangers turn their lives around. So why not him? Why couldn't God use her to help a murderer find peace? It never crossed her mind that evil could wear the mask of redemption, that the devil could quote scripture too, that the man on the other end of her letters wasn't learning how to be good. He was learning how to get close. And soon he would be closer than she ever imagined. Because Stephanie didn't just fall in love with a prisoner, she married him, and with that one decision, she opened a door she would never be able to close, not with prayers, not with tears, not even with her life. It wasn't the kind of wedding little girls dream about. There were no white dresses, no music playing softly in the background, no family watching proudly from pews, no flowers, no cake, no celebration, just cold air, metal doors, a table, a paper to sign, and a man wearing prison-issued clothes on the other side of a bulletproof wall. But to Stephanie Brinson, it wasn't about the setting, it was about the meaning. She wasn't marrying David Brinson for the romance or the fairy tale. She was marrying him because she believed in his soul. She believed she was being called to do it. That somehow, in some mysterious way, God had placed this broken man in her life for her to love, on purpose. Her friends were shocked. Her family was devastated. Her son begged her to think again, to imagine what kind of life that could be. Married to a man who would never walk outside a prison again, who had murdered 4 people, who was still dangerous even now. But Stephanie's answer was soft and firm, the way only mothers of deep faith can speak. He's changing. I can feel it. I'm his miracle. She believed that God had placed her in his life to be his light, his healer, his second chance. She truly believed that love could rewrite his story, and if no one else had the courage to see the good in him, then she would be the one. Even if it cost her comfort, even if it cost her friends, even if it cost her everything. The prison staff watched as they exchanged vows. It was brief and quiet and strange, but to Stephanie, it was sacred. She walked out that day not as a visitor, but as a wife. And from that moment on, she gave herself fully to the man the world had thrown away. She brought him books, prayed with him over the phone, pushed him to take classes behind bars. She told people, proudly, he's better now. He just needed someone to believe in him, and I do. She never stopped smiling when she talked about him. She really thought she was watching a miracle in progress. But what she didn't see, what no one could convince her to see, was that real love makes a man better, and fake love only hides the monster a little longer. Because the man she married didn't want redemption. He wanted access, and now he had it. After the wedding, the visits changed. They were no longer short chats through glass windows or rushed conversations in crowded visitation rooms. Now, Stephanie was allowed to spend whole weekends alone with David, inside what the prison called family housing units. They were small apartments built right on the prison grounds. They had a bed, a kitchen, a bathroom. They were meant to feel like home, and for 30 to 40 hours at a time, they did. To Stephanie, it felt like love was finally real. She could cook for him, talk to him without guards watching, sit beside him, not across a table. They prayed together. They read the Bible. They planned what they called a future, even though, deep down, everyone knew there wasn't going to be one. David wasn't getting out, not ever. But Stephanie believed in building something anyway. She believed that even if their world was locked inside 4 walls, God could still live in it. She said that love didn't need freedom to grow, only faith. And she gave him all of hers. Every visit she brought more than just food and clean clothes. She brought warmth. She brought stories about her grandkids. She told him how proud she was that he was taking classes in prison, that he was trying, that he was becoming the man God meant him to be. And David, he said all the right things. He held her hand. He bowed his head when they prayed. He told her he loved her, and he meant it with his whole heart. At least, that's what he said. But behind every "I love you" there was a lie. Behind every prayer there was a plan. Because David knew how to perform. He knew exactly what to say to make her feel like the miracle. And the more she gave, the more she trusted him, the more he began to feel like a different man. But that change wasn't real. He hadn't changed. Not really. He had just learned how to hide the monster better. He had painted hope across the prison walls, but underneath that paint was the same darkness that had always been there. The only difference now, Stephanie had walked straight into it and closed the door behind her. It was a quiet evening in November 2024, the kind of evening that didn't feel like it was going to change anyone's life. Stephanie packed a small bag, just like she always did. Food, fresh clothes, maybe a new devotional book to read together. She looked happy, peaceful, smiling the same soft smile she always wore when she felt close to God and close to the man she believed God had sent her to. This wasn't her first conjugal visit. It was one of many, and nothing had ever gone wrong. Before, when she arrived at Mule Creek State Prison, the process was the same. She signed in. They let her through. She was shown to the small apartment-like unit where she and David would stay, alone. No guards, no cameras, just the two of them, and almost 40 hours to spend together. She cooked, they talked, maybe they laughed, maybe she read him scripture again, just like she always did. Maybe she looked into his eyes, still believing she was touching a heart that could be saved. But by 2:12 a.m., everything changed. David picked up the phone in the room and called the officers, his voice flat, cold. "She passed out," he said. When guards rushed in, they found Stephanie lying on the bed, unresponsive. They tried CPR. They called emergency responders. They did everything they could, but by 2:47 a.m., it was over. Stephanie Diane Brinson was dead. And, just like that, the woman who had spent her life healing others was gone. At first, the story was simple. She must have had a heart attack, they said. Maybe she was just too tired. Maybe something went wrong with her body. Natural. Ill causes, they called it, and for a little while her family tried to believe that. Because the truth that someone she loved, someone she prayed for, someone she married, might have taken her last breath away with his bare hands, that kind of truth is too heavy to carry right away. So they cried and waited and wondered. While David Brinson...
Hello.
Hey.
Hello.
Hi.
And look at what we're... There it is.
I'm sorry.
11. Hi, Kylo.
And then Mary Kay Rick, you're right over there. I can't find it.
November. For months, her family waited in quiet agony. No clear answers, no updates, just an empty space where Stephanie's voice used to be, and a growing ache that something wasn't right. Her son Armin kept asking questions no one seemed eager to answer. How does a healthy woman suddenly die in her sleep, in the arms of a man who murdered 4 people? Why were they so quick to call it natural? Why wasn't anyone digging deeper? Then the call came. Cold, direct, final. The cause of death was strangulation. Not a heart attack, not a stroke, not exhaustion. She didn't pass out. She was murdered by the same man who had promised to love her, the same man she had married, the same man she had fed, prayed for, believed in. He killed her with his own hands. The weight of that truth hit like a truck. Armin collapsed into tears. His voice cracked as he said the words out loud for the first time. My mother was murdered, and they let it happen. Because someone did let it happen. The prison system gave a known killer a private space to be alone with a woman who loved too deeply. They handed him time, access, opportunity, and when he took her life they were surprised, but they shouldn't have been. He had already taken 4. This was number 5. Stephanie believed she was healing something broken. She never saw the noose behind the smile. Never saw the monster waiting for the perfect moment to strike again. She died still believing in him, and he let her. After the autopsy report came out, the grief turned into something sharper, something closer to rage. Stephanie's family didn't just want answers anymore, they wanted accountability, because this wasn't just about a woman who fell in love with the wrong man. This was about a system that opened the door and let him finish what he started. They learnt about the CDCR's conjugal visit policy, family visits they call them. Inmates who meet certain criteria can spend private time with spouses in apartment-style units, away from guards, away from surveillance, away from any kind of protection. And David Brinson, he qualified, even though he had murdered 4 people. Even though he was serving 4 life sentences without parole. He wasn't on death row, he hadn't committed a sex crime, he hadn't gotten in trouble recently. That was all it took. Because the policy didn't care who you killed or how many, it only cared if you were following the rules inside the prison walls. And David had learned how to do that perfectly. He didn't fight, he didn't argue, he kept his head down, smiled, played the game, and the system said, sure, you can have your wife alone for the weekend. He didn't misbehave, not yet. The devil wore a halo, and the system believed him. Now Stephanie's family is demanding change. Her son Armin, holding back tears in an interview, said, this can't happen to anyone else's mother. There needs to be rules. There needs to be real limits. You can't just give monsters privacy and hope they behave. But the rules didn't break. They worked exactly as written, and that's the most terrifying part, because the next Stephanie might already be packing a bag, smiling, believing in a future that will never exist, unless something changes, fast. In the end, what hurts the most isn't just how Stephanie died, it's how beautifully she lived. This was a woman who danced with her grandkids in the kitchen, who made silly videos on her birthday just to say thank you, who rode her bike in the sunshine and smiled like life hadn't touched her with grief. She gave to strangers. She prayed for the broken. She showed up for people when no one else did. She helped the homeless, raised money for families in need, and even begged others to pray for the very people who had hurt her. She was kind in a world that didn't always know what to do with kindness. She was soft in a world that worships hard hearts. She didn't judge, she didn't shame, she just loved, deeply, loudly, without condition. And in the end, that love cost her everything. Stephanie Brinson didn't die because she was naive. She died because she truly believed that love could change anyone, that even the worst human being on earth was still someone's child, that God could reach anybody if someone was willing to stand in the gap and believe for them. She stood in that gap, and the man she was standing for pulled her under. She saw God in everyone, even in the man who saw no value in her life. The world doesn't protect women like Stephanie. It praises their goodness. Then it turns its back when their goodness gets them killed. It lets policies stay broken. It lets murderers pretend they've changed. It tells people like her that their hearts are too big, too soft, too trusting, and then it watches them fall. But her story should not be forgotten. Her voice should not go quiet in vain, because love should never cost you your life, and no one, no matter how faithful, how forgiving, how full of light, should ever die alone in a prison bed at the hands of the person they married. Not like this. Not Stephanie. Rest in peace, Stephanie Brinson, a woman who loved too deeply and paid the ultimate price. If this story touched you, if it made you pause, cry, or feel something deep in your chest, then don't leave without doing one small thing that makes a big difference. subscribe, not just because of the algorithm, but because stories like Stephanie Brinnan's deserve to be heard. Her voice may be gone, but we can keep her memory alive by telling the truth, raw, honest, and unfiltered. On this channel, we don't chase clicks. We chase justice. We tell the stories of the unheard, the forgotten, the ones who loved too much and lost everything. So if you believe in giving voice to victims, if you believe the world needs to hear the truth, even when it hurts, subscribe and turn on the bell so you never miss a story that matters, because the next name could be someone you know.